All right, we're coming off a 4-1 day in our 5 premium sports bets on BrockPage.com yesterday. That's going to put us at 8-2 with a push in our last 11 $1.99 daily best plays on that website. And if you want to access today's $1.99 daily best play, the link for that bet is in the description section below. $1,000 bettors are up over $5,200 during that span. We also have over 820 members who are signed up and active on my safe and secure webpage right now. Now, if you do end up signing up for my $1.99 daily best play here today, you're actually going to get access to that package every single day, all the way through the end of March for the original fee of just $1.99. I think it works out to be like 3 or 4 cents a day for that. Incredibly cheap. Like ridiculously cheap. But anyway, if you're not signed up for that package, or if you have no idea what I'm talking about, no worries. I'll explain a little bit more about it in just a moment. But before we go ahead and move on, just want to take a quick time out and welcome you to the video. My name is Brock Page, and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. I also sell my personal bets on BrockPage.com. And I have packages on that website starting at just $1.99. Now, the purpose of these YouTube videos is to provide you with free informational sports betting content. And it's also designed to generate interest in signing up for a membership on my website. Now, you may be wondering what the difference is between what I do here on YouTube and what I do on my webpage. Well, what I do here on YouTube is I'll handicap the entire slate of games in any given sport, side and total. And then what I do on my webpage is, well, I actually share with you which one of these free YouTube picks on my channel that I'm actually betting on personally. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some NBA free content here. Got ourselves a pretty good slate here. Got a great show for you here today. So I'll be with you here for the next 20 minutes or so. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into it. We're going to start with the Cavaliers taking on the Sixers. And that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern start time on Friday, March 4th, 2022. Happy Friday to you. The weekend is finally here. Philadelphia is -7 in this ball game. Totals 218.5. Now the Sixers have won their last 4 straight. They scored 123 points or more in all of those victories. Joel Embiid, he's averaging over 29.5 points per contest, along with 11 boards. Meanwhile, James Harden, he's scoring over 27 points a night with his new team himself. Now, the Beard's also making 50% of his three-pointers with Philly. He's averaging over a dozen big assists a game. Certainly more impactful than Ben Simmons. Anyway, Philadelphia is now currently in the top 10 in the NBA in shooting the 3-ball, and they also lead the association in shooting from the stripe. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, the Sixers are allowing only 105 points a night at home, and they're actually in the top 3 in the NBA in guarding the 3-ball. They're taking on a Cleveland squad who lost 5 out of their last 6. And they failed to cover the point spread in each and every one of those contests. Now, the Cavs uncharacteristically gave up a whole bunch of points during that span as well. And offensively, when it comes to putting points up on the board, well, as many of you already know, these guys are actually amongst the worst scoring teams in the Eastern Conference. Cleveland averages only 106 points per contest, and they're also in the bottom 3 in fourth quarter scoring. Now, when it comes to head-to-head meetings between these two squads, the Cavs are averaging only 101 points a night in their last 10 meetings with Philly. When it comes to the injury report, Rondo and LeVert are still out indefinitely. Total-wise, Cleveland went 70% to the under in their last 10 ball games. They also saw 7 out of their last 10 meetings with Philly fall under the line. So if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. Meanwhile, the Sixers, on the other side of things, they are 60% to the under at the Wells Fargo Center for the entire year. So lots of unders for Philly at home. I'm going to lean toward Philadelphia -7 and the under 218.5. Next matchup, Pacers, Pistons, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Indiana's -3 with the total at 231.5. And as bad as the Pacers have been on the road this season, they've still strung together a few quality victories over the past couple of weeks. As a matter of fact, the Pacers covered in 4 out of their last 6 ball games. And they're doing a real nice job rebounding the basketball offensively. The Pacers are actually in the top 5 in the NBA in road offensive boards. And when it comes to the scoring in this one, Buddy Hield's averaging over 20.5 points per contest, along with 5 rebounds and 4 assists. Meanwhile, Tyrese Halliburton, he's averaging over 20 points a game himself, along with 9 assists, 2 steals, and 44% shooting from 3-land. And speaking of offensive production, Indiana's in the top 5 in the nation in second quarter scoring. They're taking on a Detroit squad who struggled on the defensive end of the court themselves. They're currently in the bottom 3 in defensive field goal percentage. And they're also dead last in the league in guarding the 3-ball. Now, injury-wise, Bagley and Jackson are still questionable for the Pistons. When it comes to the total in this one, Detroit saw unders recently with the likes of Toronto, Cleveland, and Dallas. They also averaged just 104 points a game in their last 10 meetings with Indiana. Now, when it comes to head-to-head meetings, 6 out of these teams' last 10 contests with each other fell under the posted total. So if you're into historical trends, plenty of unders to go around. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Indiana -3 and the under 231.5. Next contest, it is going to be Hawks versus the Wizards, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. Atlanta's -4.5, totals 224. And even though the Hawks got the W last night against Chicago, they did give up 124 points in the process. And obviously, they're in the second of a back-to-back here this evening, so injuries and fatigue could play a factor. Now, they're still going to work here without their second leading scorer, John Collins, as well, so should see maybe some impact offensively with that loss. Now, the Hawks also played their worst basketball on the road. They're just 11-19 straight up when traveling, and they went just 33% against the number in those road games. Now, the Hawks' biggest issue this season is their defensive play. They're allowing 112 points a game. And they're also in the bottom 10 in defensive field goal percentage. Now, Atlanta's taking on a Washington team who covered in 3 out of their last 4 themselves. And they also rank in the top 10 in the league in shooting from the field. Kyle Kuzma is averaging 17 points a game, along with 8 rebounds and 3 assists. Meanwhile, KCP, he's scoring nearly a dozen points a night himself, along with 3 boards. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, Washington's actually in the top 10 in the association in fewest fourth quarter points allowed. When it comes to the injury report, Porzingis is out, Carey and Adija are questionable. While for Atlanta on the other side of things, Collins is out for them. Okongwu is questionable as well. Now, total-wise, Atlanta went 6-3 to the over in their last 9 outings. They also allowed 118 points a game in their last 10 head-to-head meetings with Washington. And speaking of the Wizards, they've gone 19-13 to the over at the Capital One Arena. I'm going to lean toward Washington +4.5 and the over 224. Next ball game, it is going to be Magic versus the Raptors, 7:30 p.m. East. Toronto's -8, totals 220.5. And even though the Raptors are the clear-cut favorite in this one, they do have some injury problems right now. Anunoby's out. Van Fleet is questionable. Now, the Raptors have also done a pretty bad job at covering the point spread here recently as well. They're just 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 ball games. And in addition to that, they failed to cover recently against the likes of Detroit, Atlanta, and New Orleans during that span. Now, the Raptors also have, they've had some difficulties with the ball in their hands. They're not that great scoring. These guys are actually in the bottom 10 in home offensive points per contest. Now, one more thing to add about Toronto. They're doing a pretty bad job of shooting the basketball from the field. So these factors could play an impact in covering this 8-point number here. It's a pretty large number for a team who's banged up and really aren't all that prolific offensively. Now, they're taking on an Orlando team who actually has a winning record against the point spread on the road. And they've garnered themselves successful covers more recently against the likes of Indiana, Houston, and Denver. These guys are not completely helpless with regard to covering the point spread. They're not. These guys do have the ability to cover numbers. Now, Cole Anthony, he's scoring 17 points a game along with 5 rebounds and 5 assists. Meanwhile, Franz Wagner scoring over 15.5 points a game himself, along with 4 boards and a couple assists as well. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, the Magic ranks in the top 10 in defensive field goal percentage on the road. When it comes to the injury report, Mo Wagner is out, Carter is questionable. And once again, for Toronto on the other side of things, Van Fleet, Wilson, and Young, they're all questionable for them. Of course, OG Anunoby, he is out. Now, total-wise, Toronto saw 6 out of their last 8 fall under the posted number. Meanwhile, Orlando saw unders against the likes of Houston, Utah, and Portland. I'm going to lean toward Orlando plus 8 and the under 220.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Bucks versus the Bulls, 7:30 p.m. East. Milwaukee's minus 5.5, totals 240. Now, the Bucks have been real bad covering the point spread here recently. They failed to cover in 6 out of their last 7 ball games, and they allow more third quarter points per contest than any other team in the NBA. They're taking on a Chicago team who still won 6 out of their last 9, despite their recent skid. Now, the Bulls have also been very good in the United Center this season. They're 24-9 straight up in Chi-Town, and they're covering in 67% of those home games. So once again, 24-9 straight up in Chicago, 67% against the number in those home games. And as you probably know, the Bulls' biggest advantage is their ability to shoot the basketball. Now, Chicago's leading the NBA in both offensive field goal percentage and shooting from 3 land. DeMar DeRozan, he averages over 28 points per contest, along with 5 boards and 5 assists. Meanwhile, Zach LaVine, he's making over 40% of his three-pointers, and he's also scoring 24.5 points a game. Now, the Bulls are averaging 115 points per contest in front of their home crowd this year, and they're making nearly 50% of their field goals in that same category. Now, injury-wise, Caruso and Ball are still out indefinitely. Meanwhile, for the Bucks, Hill is questionable. Connaughton and Lopez still out indefinitely for them. When it comes to the total in this one, plenty of overs for Milwaukee recently. The Bucks went 9-1 to the over in their last 10 ball games. Meanwhile, Chicago saw overs recently with Atlanta, Sacramento, and Minnesota. They're also 19-14 to the over in the United Center. I'm going to lean towards Chicago plus 5.5 and the over 240. Next matchup, it is going to be Timberwolves versus the Thunder, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Minnesota's minus 10 with a total at 230.5. And even though the T-Wolves have had a pretty nice stretch of games here over the past couple of weeks, they did fail to cover recently against the likes of Philadelphia, Toronto, and Charlotte. Now, when it comes to competing on the road here, the T-Wolves still have a losing record this season when they travel. Now, Minnesota's biggest problem is their defensive lapses. These guys allow nearly 118 points a game on the road this year. They're also in the bottom 5 in road defensive field goal percentage. When it comes to grabbing boards, well, the T-Wolves are amongst the worst defensive rebounding team in the West. They're taking on an OKC squad who won 2 out of their last 3 themselves. And that includes victories over the likes of Denver and Indiana. Now, the Thunder's also been pretty good covering the point spread here recently. As a matter of fact, OKC went 7-3 against the spread in their last 10 ball games. Now, when it comes to the scoring, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's averaging over 23.5 points per contest, along with 4 boards and 5 assists. Meanwhile, Darius Bazley, he averages double-digit points a game himself, along with 6 rebounds. When it comes to covering the point spread, OKC's 19-11 against the spread at home this year. And that's good for over 63% in that category. Kind of a sneaky team. Not real good stats, not real good numbers. Always injured, but always manages to cover that point spread. Now, injury-wise, Favors, Williams, Jerome, Dort, and Wiggins, they are out for OKC. Giddey, Muscala, and Robinson Earl, they're still out indefinitely for the Thunder as well. Meanwhile, for Minnesota on the other side of things, Edwards and Wright are out for them. Vanderbilt's also listed as questionable. When it comes to the total in this one, Minnesota went 80% to the over in their last 10 outings. The T-Wolves are also 25-7 to the over as the official road team. Meanwhile, OKC saw their last 6 straight get over the posted total themselves. They're also averaging nearly 116 points a game in their last 10 meetings with Minnesota. I'm going to lean toward OKC plus 10, keeping this one close, and the over 230.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Jazz versus the Pelicans, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Utah's -4 with the total at 223.5. Now, the Jazz are on a 3-game winning streak, and they also got the W in 9 out of their last 10. Utah's one of the best scoring teams in the NBA right now. They're actually in the top 3 in offensive points per game. And they're amongst the best in the league in shooting from the field. Donovan Mitchell, he's averaging over 26 points a game, along with 4 rebounds and 5 assists. Meanwhile, Bojan Bogdanovic, he's scoring over 17.5 points a game himself, along with 4 boards. And speaking of rebounds, Utah's currently leading the entire NBA in defensive boards per contest. They're taking on a Pelicans team who has a losing record at home this year, and they actually do a pretty bad job of shooting the basketball. New Orleans is currently in the bottom 10 in offensive field goal percentage, and they're also amongst the worst in the NBA in shooting from beyond the arc. Now, when it comes to defensive play in this one, on the other end of the court, New Orleans also finds themselves in the bottom 10 in defensive field goal percentage. When it comes to the injury list, Nance is still out indefinitely. Butler's questionable for the Jazz. Now, scoring-wise, Utah's last 3 straight got over the line. 70% to the over in their last 10 meetings with New Orleans. Meanwhile, the Pelicans saw overs recently with the likes of Dallas, Memphis, and San Antonio. I'm going to lean toward Utah -4 in the over 223.5. Next contest, Rockets, Nuggets, 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Denver's -13.5, totals 237. Now, the Nuggets have been playing some really good basketball over the past month or so. They're 8-2 straight up in their last 10 ball games. And they covered the point spread in 70% of those contests. Now, one of the Nuggets' biggest strengths is their ability to rebound defensively. These guys are actually in the top 5 right now in defensive boards per game. And when it comes to getting the basket, Nikola Jokic, he's averaging 25 points a game, along with 13 boards and 7 assists. Meanwhile, Will Barton, he's scoring 15 points a game himself, along with 4 rebounds and 3 assists as well. And speaking of offensive production, the Nuggets are shooting very well from the field this season. These guys are actually in the top 5 in offensive field goal percentage. Now, they're taking on a Houston team who lost their last 11 straight. Full-on tank mode, Tankapalooza, and they've actually got the W in only 1 ball game since January 19th. Now, when it comes to playing on the road, Utah's winning just 21% of those ball games. No real surprise there. And, well, speaking of surprises, no real surprise with this next thing I'm about to tell you. Man, what a segue. The Rockets allow more points per contest on the road than any other team in the league. Now, injury-wise, Gordon, Schroeder, and Tate are questionable. Garuba's still out with that wrist. Meanwhile, for Denver, Murray and Cancer are still out indefinitely. Najee is questionable with a hammy. That was me patting the hammy there. Anyway, total-wise, Denver saw unders recently with Portland, Sacramento, and Toronto. Meanwhile, the Rockets saw 3 out of their last 4 fall under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Denver, -13.5. And the under 237. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be Knicks versus the Suns, 10 p.m. Eastern start time. Phoenix is -6.5, totals 221. Now, the Suns are at 50 wins already on the season. They've also done a real nice job this year defensively. Phoenix currently leads the NBA in guarding the three ball. They're also in the top 3 in defensive field goal percentage. Now, when it comes to scoring points, DeAndre Ayton, he's averaging 16.5 points per contest, along with double-digit rebounds. Meanwhile, Mikal Bridges, he's scoring 13 points a game himself, along with 4 boards and a couple assists. And speaking of rebounding the basketball, the Suns are currently in the top 5 in the association in home offensive boards per contest. They're taking on a Knicks team who lost their last 6 straight, and they covered the point spread just twice since January 24th. Now, in addition to winning just 40% of their road games this year, the Knicks also lost 8 out of their last 10 head-to-head meetings with Phoenix. Now, New York's biggest problem this year has been their offensive production. We say that in pretty much every video. These guys score only 104 points a game on the road. They also find themselves in the bottom 3 in the association in shooting from the field. Now, injury-wise, Grimes is still out for New York with a knee. Meanwhile, for Phoenix, Booker and Paul are out for them. Look for some potential buyback with regard to the number because of those injuries. Sports bettors tend to really overreact when it comes to injuries, but like New York's playing so bad right now, really not sure it's going to matter. But anyway, total-wise, 3 out of Phoenix's last 6 fell under the line. Unders against the likes of Portland, New Orleans, and the Clippers. They also held New York to just 106 points a game in their last 10 contests against each other. I'm going to lean toward Phoenix minus 6.5 and the under 221. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on BrockPage.com. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership on BrockPage.com, you're going to get access to that content all the way through the end of March. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And guys, if you want to get access to every single bet, every single package that I offer on that website, you're going to want to sign up for my board member tier. Board members get access to every single package that I offer on that website all the way through the end of March. But guys, most importantly, I gotta thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy Friday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at BrockPage.com.